Oh, Mary. Um, a few videos ago, I'd mentioned something about the fairy realm, so I thought that would make a good topic for today. A little bit of experience in that realm. Actually, a lot of people have, they just don't know it. There was a time when apparently the fairies, at least in the British Isles and so forth, would appear in human form. And I think, if I remember correctly, one of the last times this happened was during the 1800s. This story goes that there was a man walking home after work, and he was walking across this field, and he saw on the other side of the clearing a woman coming his way. And so he kept going. They met about the middle of the field, and like a gentleman, he wished her a good day. She didn't say anything. She just reached over and put her hand on top of his head, kept walking. He found this very curious, but he went on home and, went through the night and went to bed that night, woke up in the morning, and all his hair had fallen out. This is something that I've seen. I've read the stories about the encounters with the fairies for a lot of years since I was a boy. They seem to have one theme in common, runs throughout these stories, and that is, apparently, to the fairies, the number one problem with human beings is our pride. They see that as our great downfall, apparently, from what I've been able to gather anyway. And pride is everywhere. Pride and arrogance and these horrible things are just everywhere. And it's being encouraged in people. So these days, I get the impression they appear more as animals. From large animals such as deer, or down to little insects sometimes. There was something that happened to me a lot of years ago. I was living in the mountains in North Carolina, and I was up walking around on a pasture, and then the pasture sloped down to a wooded area, and it was a wetlands down in there. Really, it's very, very. You couldn't get more contrasting conditions. So up in the pasture, it was dry and it was hot, and the grass was short. And then you get down to this wetlands, and these huge ferns were lining it with moss everywhere, and these great trees, great poplars and buckeyes and whatnot coming up. So I went down, and I didn't go into the soggy area. I just stayed right there at the edge of it, and there was a log there, or maybe it was a tree stump. I sat down, just enjoying being in that in-between place. And I heard something rustling in the grass, and I looked over, and lo and behold, there was a little groundhog, a young groundhog. And it walked on up to me, and it startled me. I never had a groundhog just walk up to me before. And it got up, just a couple of feet away from me, two or three feet away from me. And I said, "Well, what are you doing here?" And I could see the expression on his face. It was like, "Oh, well, I tried." Turned around and walked away. And we got evicted from our home later on. This happened later. And as we were driving up to our house, before we found out that we had to leave, there was this huge groundhog there next to the drive. And this thing was like a pig. I mean, it was a major groundhog. And saw us, and he got all excited and jumped around and jumped on up the road ahead of us. Well, it took me decades to realize that those were fairies, or that was a fairy. One was, I was in that in-between place, and oftentimes that's where you find the fairies, in that in-between place. And so the fairy came to check me out, and I didn't know what was going on, but they didn't give up on me, you know. She came again. I think it was a she. You could call it one. And she came again to warn us about this, impending change, and it was a big change. It was followed by a number of years of difficulties. Where we're living now is, I'll tell you something that happened a few years back. I was feeling pretty down about things. Things were not going well. And I was trying to lift my spirits, but sometimes it's difficult. Sitting out on the back deck and looking down, and it's about the middle of the summer, and it was dry and it was hot, and I saw this kind of a dragonfly looking insect. It was, I forget what they call it, but it's a kind of a dragonfly that you would normally see in wet places, cool, wet places. It doesn't get out in the sunlight very much. So I sat there and looked at it in somewhat amazement, and it was dancing around in front of me. And then it was joined by another one, and then another one, and then another one. And after a while, there were like 20 or 30 of these just dancing in front of me. And I got the message, cheer up. It's not that bad. In fact, it's pretty good. Dance like us, fly like us. It was a great lesson. And have seen them a number of times since. To the fairies, our great downfall is pride, and that we let things get us down. You might want to keep this in mind the next time you're out in the woods and you see an animal that's acting strangely, looking at you, like a bird will look at you with that one eye, or a deer might come up and stare at you for a long time. Or you get an insect that keeps flying around your head. Well, it may not be there to bother you. It may be trying to communicate something. Put your ego aside. It's not about you. It's about life. These are nature spirits. And they would show us how to be more natural if we would let them.